I always enjoy a... I don't want to say a serpent god, but I do want to say a serpent god.
I always enjoy a serpent god. We're recording.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going?
Are you asking me or the audience?
Oh, well, yeah, I probably should preface that. Everyone listening, yes, you, how's it going? You can't tell us yet, but hopefully it's going great. Becca, how's it going for you?
Can't complain. I can complain. I'm choosing not to in this moment in time. We want to thank you for joining us on our third episode of Streaming with the Lights On.
The podcast where we talk weekly about whatever spooky movie is streaming on various streaming platforms for our and viewing pleasure. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm real tired. I went to get a coffee today, and it's not uncommon that I get my name misspelled or mispronounced, or just a totally different name.
Which is weird because your name is Brian, which is pretty much the most all-American name.
I've almost never had my first name misspelled, other than like they'll say an I instead of a Y, which it is. But for the first time, I got something totally different. I gave them my name. I said Brian. They're like, okay, cool. And they put in, my order. And I look at my receipt to sign, and it says Vrian. V as in Victor.
Like Viren?
Like Brian. And I don't know how someone heard a common name and thought, yep, it's probably not that.
It's like Brian who went to DeVry University.
Is there a real Brian?
That was my joke.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. There might be in the world. That was my joke that I thought was funnier in my head.
I mean, I support every joke that you make. Yeah, so I guess today I'm Brian.
You're Brian. I guess that makes me Becca. Too bad we didn't watch a vampire movie. That would have been perfect.
Well,
son of a bitch.
Oh well. Instead, we had to go and watch a demonic possession movie. But that's also up Becca's alley. I know that's a favorite of yours.
It is. That is one of my favorite genres. I did want to say, on an unrelated demonic possession genre, I have started watching the sci-fi show Debris on NBC.
Oh.
And Peacock. And just Peacock because I don't have cable. And I am thoroughly enjoying it. It was such an original concept. And yeah, check it out if you like sci-fi mystery stuff. It's about an alien spaceship that crashes way far away in space, and the debris starts falling to Earth. And it's about this team that tries to collect the debris and kind of figure it out from like a technology standpoint and all of this other stuff that I don't think gets talked about enough in at least the television sci-fi area. So I'm thoroughly enjoying that.
Huh.
It's good.
Nice.
It's good.
I got an account for Discovery Plus, which I think I mentioned before, and I just go all over the place with all of the weird paranormal shows on there. Some that I've been watching. I just want to mention this list because it's pretty great. The lengths at which Discovery will go to post something paranormal. There's Ghost Adventures.
Obvious choice.
Ghost Adventures Aftershocks.
Okay.
Ghost Adventures Where Are They Now? Ghost Adventures Cecil Hotel. Ghost Adventures Screaming Room. Ghost Adventures Quarantine.
Zach Bagans.
Ghost Adventures Serial Killer Spirits.
Oh my god.
Ghost Adventures Horror at Joe Exotic's Zoo. And I'll stop there. The point being that you can tell there's a lot of variety.
I really can't make fun of you because I also watch Love Island, so you really can't get lower than that.
Well, you got any updates on your creepy neighbors that might be shapeshifters or drug lords? Or
there's been a car parked in their driveway that has had the window like not working for a long time, and they had like a cover over it, and then we had a really windy day,
Uh-oh.
and I don't know if they took the cover off or it blew away.
Did you look into the car and see what was in there?
I mean, you can just look into it because the window isn't.
No dead bodies?
No, no dead bodies, and I will be moving in a month and a half, and then I'll have new neighbor stories because I'll live in an apartment. I'm legit becoming like Jimmy Stewart. I'm literally becoming Jimmy Stewart.
Or you're becoming Shia LaBeouf from Disturbia?
No, let's go with Jimmy Stewart because I don't want to be Shia LaBeouf.
Nobody does. Speaking of actors and movies and this podcast, let's talk about the movie we watched.
Yeah, we watched The Taking of Deborah Logan, which came out in 2014, as of right now on Amazon Prime, Shudder, and Tubi. And if that changes when the episode is released, we will definitely update that information. But it was directed by Adam Robotel. That's just awful. I'm sorry, Adam. And I pulled up his filmography, and he's pretty impressive. He directed, obviously, Taking of Deborah Logan, Insidious Last Key. He's in post-production on the next Insidious film, and he did Escape Room, and the sequel to Escape Room 2. So yeah, he's definitely right there in it. It stars Jill Larson and Ramsey, Michelle Ng, and yeah, you want to tell him what it was about?
Mia records the daily lives of Deborah and her daughter Sarah as part of her thesis. As the days progress, strange things happen around Deborah, and it becomes apparent something has taken control of her.
I wanted to say that also add that the thesis is about Alzheimer's.
Yes, that's not in the synopsis there, but yes, that is obviously a big role of the plot.
Before we really got into it, if you have a problem with snakes, would not recommend this movie. This is definitely one that I would recommend skipping. Snakes, if snakes get under your skin, no pun intended, just, And I would also say that this one is a definite glare movie. So if you are thinking about watching it or you're not sure before we get into talking about it, definitely one that you want to watch at night or in a dark room because there are some very dark scenes. It's a found footage style movie, so
I have seen this movie before.
As have I.
And I almost remembered nothing except the ending.
Really?
Yeah, and even then, I only remembered parts of the ending. It was a blessing and a curse that I didn't remember anything because all the scares felt fresh. I felt like I was watching it for the first time.
The end will stay with me for the rest of my life, unfortunately. Just because I have a fear of snakes, like I said. I feel like this is one of those movies where I would only remember details about it when I actively thought about it. It wasn't one that popped into my head, so I think some of the scares did get me a little as well.
How do you feel like it held up seeing it a second go around?
It did hold up for multiple viewings. I don't know if that's the fact that I really enjoy possession type movies and they get under my skin a little more, or if it's the movie. I think it's probably the movie in this case. The original idea behind the actual possession of the woman. So Deborah Logan, like we said, she is an Alzheimer's patient, and her daughter and her agreed to this medical documentary so they can get the grant money so that Deborah can stay in her house. That's kind of the ultimate setup goal of the movie. And I think that the actress that plays Deborah, had she not been as good as she was, I think this movie would have been more forgettable.
Yes, Jill Larson.
I just thought that she did such an incredible job. Especially if you look at her at the beginning of the movie, where she's got this red hair, she's lively, and then at I think the last shot of her is she's in a wheelchair.
Right.
And she can't speak, she can't eat, she can't really do anything anymore by the end of the movie. And the actress did such a good job of capturing a haunted expression throughout the whole movie, where you felt sorry for her, but at the same time you were terrified of her.
Right. That's a very good point. And again, that just goes back to the credit of the talent in this movie. And really, I mean, we can get more into it as we talk, but this is one of those rare movies where I'd say pretty much everyone did an exceptional job in terms of the actors. And that's for what they were given, right? Like Deborah Logan's daughter in the movie did a great job. I thought that the other crew on the documentary did a great job for what they were supposed to be. Like I said, I forgot most of this movie. And it's no discredit to the movie, but this time watching it, I never really touched my phone. I was invested. Even if you're not in the right atmosphere for this movie, it puts you in the atmosphere. And there's a lot of moments in this movie where I found myself thoroughly entertained by being creeped out.
I don't have anybody in my family that has ever suffered from Alzheimer's
Me neither.
as of right now, which I'm very, very thankful for. So I don't know if the use of that disease may come across as
exploitative, which is something they say in the movie, which I don't think it does.
Exactly.
Clearly, it's a unique and controversial decision on a storytelling level. And I do think it's a very thin line to walk between appropriate or, like we were saying, exploitative. I think that this movie is not being exploitative to people with Alzheimer's. I think someone who may start watching this movie could be on the fence, but I think as the movie progresses, you can tell that they are not being exploitative about people who really suffer from Alzheimer's. So to anyone listening who deals with that on a personal level, that could be a trigger to some extent, because it's obviously a role in the movie. I mean, this is a possession movie. It's not a Alzheimer's is a demon movie.
Right.
That's just part of the plot. They're not saying that, like, they don't try to, like, go beyond real science, or change the science of Alzheimer's. You know, that was a very thin line to cross. I think that they crossed it fine.
I would agree with that, yeah. I did like the backstory. I always enjoy a... I don't want to say a serpent god, but I do want to say a serpent god.
I always enjoy a serpent god.
I like movies where it's not the devil. I like something out of that box. Not who doesn't, I mean,
right.
We all love a good devil possession movie. I just feel like in the genre, it can be overplayed and not as scary as something that we don't know really well. I really liked that they went that way with the possession instead of just good old demon route.
Yeah, you're very hipster with your demonic possession movies. But I agree. It was much more refreshing that essentially the victim here, Deborah Logan, is possessed by the spirit of a dead child murderer rather than like, the devil made me do it. Which I'm sure we'll get to that Conjuring movie at some point. I found a lot about this movie pretty refreshing. Since this deals with demonic possession, I think that a lot of scares have to come from the victim of the possession. I mean, any movie you think of, that's kind of the case. You know, Exorcist, you're scared of the little girl spewing up pea soup. In this one, you're terrified by this old woman.
I wanted to say that one of the most effective scares for me in this movie is her walking around at night.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can give Paranormal Activity like the original credit for that, but there is just something truly terrifying about having somebody walk around in their nightwear, clearly not aware of what they're doing. I don't know what it is, but that is something that is very creepy to me.
I think the bigger picture for me of what makes that creepy, it's when a person is behaving or acting in a way that you cannot predict, and therefore unpredictability makes that person dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with you that the unpredictability is terrifying, but I think when it's at night, that's when that action is most effective, at least for me.
Well, since we're talking about scares, I do want to point out a few that really thoroughly creeped me out.
Okay.
There's a scene at night where they go up to where Deborah paints and sees all her paintings of someone coming up to the window and hangs a cross on the window. And then she's suddenly there. And then I think she says, "You're letting all my air out," or you're letting all the heat out. And then the windows suddenly open. It was a combination of things that made it scary. It was finding her there, but also when she says that line, it's like several octaves lower than her voice should be. That little touch that they decided to make was very effective for me. Another creep out moment when she's at the hospital and she's talking with the doctor, and there's a camera on the table, and she's being asked to do some simple cognitive things like put a shape in the right hole. And she's just, talking to her, and Deborah starts scratching her arm and then just casually starts peeling her flesh off.
Yeah.
And it freaks out the doctor. But this little tidbit that makes it even better is that Deborah looks down at her arm and goes, oh, it's just like really fascinated by it. And I keep thinking, like, what the fuck would she have done if no one was in the room? Would she just been like, oh, look at this, and just peel her whole body off? Like, what was she doing?
Were you able to do that? I don't know.
Honestly, I think when it comes to demonic possession movies, the reason that there's so much self-inflicted harm by the victim of possession is because the demon or whatever possessing the victim does not feel pain, but they can inflict pain on the body they're possessing and thus hurt the person that they're victimizing. And I think that that's a trope I see a lot in possession movies, is self-harm, because the demon can get away with that.
Yeah, I don't think I have a favorite scare moment for this one. Like I said, I do really get creeped out just when she was just walking around at night and the camera would just catch her quickly walking by.
Yeah.
That part. And then obviously I think we need to talk about the switchboard scene. Everybody thinks she's gone missing. And there's this beeping in the house, and they follow the beeping noise upstairs to the attic, and Deborah is sitting there naked at her old switchboard. And it was obviously a very violating scene because, having known Deborah for most of the movie, she's a very proper, private woman.
Right.
And who would clearly not want to be nude in front of anyone, I would assume.
Right.
So that act alone that the thing possessing her was doing was scary enough. But then putting her at her old job where she, found her independence and her own strength and made a living for herself and made a name for herself, it was just kind of violating on two fronts, which is scary on a whole other level. So I thought that scene was very powerful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah, no, that is very intrusive, violating, and even if I didn't pick up on that until you said it, I felt that subconsciously watching the scene.
Right. And they do a good job of not exploiting the nudity.
Right.
Which is awesome.
I took it very seriously because of the way that they portrayed it. Yeah.
I don't know if I felt this way the first time I watched it because I watched it years ago. But the second time I watched it, I felt I'm gonna pull the Brian card here. And I felt like it got almost a little too exposition-y.
Oh.
I know. With the explaining of the, child serial killer backstory. And I mentioned earlier that this movie does kind of cross into the crime, mystery, thriller genre briefly in it. And that almost got too much for me, especially when they were going back and forth from the hospital to the house so often. I would say like the climax of the movie, which I want to talk about the kidnapping. And we're going to put a pin in the kidnapping. But Deborah has, for a second time, kidnapped a little girl from the hospital where she was hospitalized at. And they are chasing her down to...
It's an old mine. It's called something... It starts with an M, but they're going to these mills, which is part of a mine.
Right.
It's also part of this river, this red river they call the River Rouge.
So they're chasing her, they're in their car traveling, and it just got to this point where I just kind of felt like it was more crime mystery thriller than I really wanted from this movie. And this is a small criticism.
Right.
Which honestly also could be that I was tired when I watched it. So that could very well be it. It's just, it got a little too exposition-y for my taste. And then my second criticism has to do with the kidnapping, but we'll get to that. Did you have anything you wanted to add with that? Because I know you're the king of exposition.
Yeah, meaning I hate it.
That's true.
Obviously, like, you can't avoid noticing it in this movie because it's literally a plot point. And like the way that they try to work around that, other than just sitting and literally telling you, hey, here's this whole subplot, is that Deborah's daughter tells the team, oh yeah, there's this documentary. So they're like watching a documentary video.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's fine. And I think that certainly helped instead of just explaining the whole thing. Unfortunately, because that made the plot so, I don't want to say convoluted, because that's like negative, but it made it so complicated that you couldn't really avoid needing to talk about a lot of specific details that become exposition.
Right.
I just kind of went along and accepted most of it because a lot of the material around it and the acting and the filmmaking was good enough that I could bypass some of that.
I wonder if there a movie though where you have a positive reaction to exposition as opposed to just accepting it.
Yeah, show don't tell. That's like a common rule, right?
I'm just going to be excited for a movie that we talk about where that happens because it's going to be like hitting the jackpot bingo.
Well, there's like small instances in this movie I don't think it worked, and they're very minor, but they could have been easily avoided. One that really stuck with me was like when they're doing the chase with the cops to try and find her and the little girl, and they see the river, and I think it's the cop who says the line, "The River Rouge, like in the documentary." Or like the river. No one says like at the Empire State Building, like in King Kong. Like, no, it's just the fucking Empire State Building. It's just a river. Why would these locals like need to say?
I mean, but to be fair, I don't know what the rivers around me are called.
No, and I don't either. But like, it's a small ass town where you would think that a cop, especially, would know why that river was important. That all she needed to say was like, it's the River Rouge. Like, she doesn't need to remind the audience like this is like that documentary on the internet. Remember about the killer that came and he killed these girls here? It's like, can you shut the fuck up and go save this little girl? It was very minor annoyance.
Your exposition rants are becoming my favorite.
Well, I'm glad that I can entertain us somehow.
So basically, the child, murderer possesses Deborah Logan.
Yes.
In order to complete his killings, because he didn't get to kill, I think, his fifth victim to become the serpent god.
Right.
So Deborah kidnaps this little girl who's in the hospital because she has cancer. The first kidnapping attempt fails. And then she's able to successfully kidnap the same girl from the hospital, and that succeeds. I can take a horror movie not being realistic. I can accept things and all of that. I can get on board the ridiculous train and ride it all the way to Gore City. That's fine. I just feel like if she had kidnapped a different child, I wouldn't have had the problem. But the fact that she got away with kidnapping the same little girl twice, as if they wouldn't do everything in their power to make sure that didn't happen again to that little girl. And like, I get that she's possessed and she has, more than human strength and all of that. But at the same time, it was just one of those little things that bugged me.
People fuck up at their jobs and people aren't great at it. And maybe it's my distrust of hospitals in general, but like, I bought the performance, the anger and frustration of the dad of that little girl the second time she gets kidnapped. Because I'm like, yeah, people are shitty at their jobs. You
know how you have your exposition rants? I have my rants about small plot points that I get hung up on and I can't stand it and they bug me. So this one for this movie was that little tidbit. And like I said, it's a small criticism. It doesn't affect my opinion of the movie at all. It was just one of those things where it was just like, okay, like, how many people had to fuck up at their job for this to happen? Before, maybe if they would have changed the little girl at a different hospital or whatever. So, do we want to talk about the ending and how much it messes me up?
Yes, let's do it.
So they're trying to track down Deborah to save this little girl's life.
Right.
And she's in like an old mine cave situation thing. Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to remember it to the day I die. She's behind this huge rock. And they turn the corner. Like, my stomach is churning just talking about it.
Do you want me to describe it?
No, I think it'll be funnier if I fight through it. So, you know how snakes unhinge their jaw to swallow I don't like snakes. To swallow their prey whole.
Mm-hmm.
When we go around the big rock, Deborah is trying to do that with the little girl. Her jaw is fully unhinged, and it's around half of the little girl's head. When I tell you right now that I am pretty close to puking, I'm not exaggerating. But there's just it's wet and it looks inhuman, and I don't like it. And when I say that I remember when I watched this movie for the first time, that messed me up pretty badly. And when I watched it again, and every time I would see that movie on any streaming service, I would be like, oh, that fucking scene. Like, every time.
That's the only scene I remember from the first time I watched it.
I don't know if it's because I think it's because I have a thing with snakes, because it's not gory. It doesn't fit into that time period of, 70s to 80s gore that makes my stomach hurt. I think it's just a snake thing.
Yeah, but you don't see that every day. Even in a horror movie, I don't recall any horror movie where someone just decides, I'm going to just get a snake mouth now and just start slowly swallowing a kid.
It's not a commonly used thing, but I also want to point out that this is like the first episode we've recorded where I'm freaking myself out a little bit, and I'm gonna have to watch something happy when we're done. This is what when you get me in my right genre, that's what happens. Just talking about a movie freaks me out.
I hate to do this to you, but I have to say something else about that scene. Again, everything that happens in this movie, even the supernatural stuff, nothing feels super gimmicky or cheesy. So even if they go all out and super outlandish with what you're about to see, they try to do it in a way that feels like, oh, maybe if this was possible, this is what it would look like. And when they have an old lady get a big snake mouth and start eating a little child, they literally play it out as a snake really would.
I completely agree with you.
It doesn't...
Completely.
It's not like a cartoon dragon or snake like from a sci-fi action movie. It's like snakes slowly, inch by inch, start gulping a live thing in their mouth and drooling everywhere.
I hate you so much.
And that's exactly what it was like. And that lends a lot of suspension of disbelief in that scene and what makes it so unsettling.
I have to call my mom after this.
Hold Chandler.
I wanted to say that I agree with you, and I think that this movie does have jump scares and all that, but they're pretty low key, especially in terms of, what you would normally see in a possession, subgenre film. They're pretty low key. There are obviously scares. And I think that just builds to the ending and why the ending is so effective and so scary.
I did put a pin in mentioning my thought of the difference between found footage and documentary.
Oh, yes.
The difference for me is when I hear found footage, I think Blair Witch Project. I mean, yes, the plot of that movie is kind of very similar, only in the sense that it's about some students making a film. So it is a documentary in a sense. But a lot of found footage horror movies, the premise, the gimmick behind it is you found this footage. You just stumbled across it, or it was left behind and the filmmakers in question are either missing or dead.
Right.
And you start putting the piece together of what happened to them, the characters, as you watch this found footage. In this, no one went missing. Some of the scenes in the movie play out like you're filming a documentary. Here's a good example. Lake Mungo, Australian movie. But that is literally shot and edited and performed like, you've got testimonials, you've got scenes with some text with some descriptions thrown in. So it feels like something you'd watch on TV. This doesn't really do that. It's kind of a mixed media thing where it feels like they're setting out to make a documentary, but at the same time, it starts to stray and it feels like you're just watching raw footage. So I think that it's a weird mesh of the two concepts. because I think that something that helps horror when it's found footage is how raw the storytelling feels. Whereas in a documentary, it's all nicely put together and clean, even if it's supposed to be scary. Like, it's a finished product.
I agree with you that there is a difference, but I don't think that there is enough of the documentary branch off from found footage to qualify it as like a different subgenre from found footage.
Well, I think that the one exception, and I'm sure there are more, and I'm just not thinking of them, but I would challenge that by just saying I think a movie like Lake Mungo is not really found footage. I think it has found footage for a scene, but I do think that, like, if I watched that and I watched this, I would feel like I was watching two different... I mean, I would say it's a subgenre. I know I'm just pitching it.
No. I mean, I hadn't thought of the difference before, to be honest with you, until you brought that up, and I think that it is a valid difference. I just don't think it's been done enough for it to branch off and be its own thing. Because Lake Mungo, I definitely agree with you, and another one that fits that would be The Tunnel.
Oh, okay. Never saw that.
I think the big difference is who lives at the end of, a found footage versus a documentary.
Yeah.
And obviously, if it's something like Cloverfield where they're not shooting a documentary, then obviously it's found footage.
Right.
The tunnel is, a news crew goes into this tunnel where homeless people have been dying under Sydney. That was also a live recommendation. But, I think people live through that, but it's not edited together like something like Lake Mungo, which would be a documentary kind of thing. So I do see your difference in it. I just don't think that it's been done enough to be separated, at least not yet.
Well, final thoughts, rewatchability, rating.
Obviously, I really enjoyed this movie. It had a serious effect on me, especially the last scene. I think the rewatchability is there for me. It's not one that I'm gonna own, but it's definitely one that I would put on if the mood struck me. And it is in one of my genres that I like to watch, possession movies. So, I mean, the snake thing holds me back a little bit sometimes. But I having watched this movie now twice, I think that this is one that I would probably watch again. And I actually gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
Oh, that's lower than I thought it was going to be.
What about you?
Definitely rewatchability. Even though the first time I've seen it, I don't remember it. I just thought a lot of the movie kept me hooked. Obviously, I couldn't say enough. The performances by the cast were really solid. They help pull you in and keep you there. The scares are effective. The filmmaking was good. There were some complaints. I could have done with pulling back on the complicated plot a little bit, but I think that it was admirable how much they tried to throw into the movie. Because of that, it would keep me from giving like a 0.5 higher, so I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 out of 5.
All right, sweet. So that puts our joint rating. That's not correct. Okay, so you gave
I feel
it a 4,
like that
right?
means... Yeah, so that's like a non-existent rating, right? Because that'd be like 3.75.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'll let you pick.
That's a mistake because I can't pick.
Let's do. Well, I think 4 out of 5 is solid. That's like 80%.
I'll agree with that because I think I would have been my first viewing. It would have been a 4, so I agree with that. So I will go ahead and add that to our letterbox.
Just for Jill Larson giving an effective and vulnerable performance. And one of the best that I've probably seen in a demonic possession movie, at least to my recollection. I know Becca has way better knowledge and memory of possession movies than I do, but I just thought someone needs a standing ovation here, so the least I can do is give 4 out of 5.
That's fair. So yeah, I added that to our letterbox, which you can follow us and we will follow you back. We are at SWTLO on Letterboxd, which is a great little site where you can rate all and track all the movies you've watched and make a watch list.
Mm-hmm.
It's very handy. We are not sponsored by them. I just love Letterboxd so much. And our next movie that we are going to watch, which I guess it was a good preview of how I am when I get like to Nope territory. Because the next movie we're going to watch is The House by the Cemetery, which came out in 1981, which I don't know much about, but I feel like it's
I know nothing about.
It's going to be gory, and it's going to be in that time frame where it makes my stomach churn. So that's going to be a fun discussion to have and a fun one to watch. I'm definitely not looking forward to it. But that one is currently available on Shudder and Showtime if you would like to check that out.
And hit us up at all of our social media at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SWTLO, or Streaming with the Lights On.
Streaming with the Lights On at Gmail is our email account.
Yeah, so feel free to email us or hit us up on our socials about what you thought of Deborah Logan.
Yeah, we're always looking for recommendations.
And sharing all of the snake memes to creep Becca out more.
No, let's not do that. But you can definitely recommend a whole lot of Nope movies because there are so many out there that I just
Oh, you know what I want? I want a Bigfoot demonic possession movie. Does that mean Bigfoot possesses someone, or does Bigfoot get possessed?
I would think Bigfoot possessing somebody, but I think that's like a Mulder question. That's not like a Becca question.
So he just possesses someone, and you get found shaky cam footage of like grandma walking like Bigfoot in the woods.
You're the expert in Bigfoot movies, so
boy, grandma got some big feet.
I like how we went from snakes to Bigfoot.
Well, that's all of our time. Thanks so much, everyone, for keeping tuned in and streaming with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
I know it's not our official tagline, but I'm always going to say it until Becca makes me stop. Stream you later.
Hi, guys. Thanks.